Hey everybody, I wanted to talk about this blog post that Creative Assembly made, I guess yesterday morning. I didn't have a chance to really read through it and digest it until yesterday evening, and I thought about it some last night and I thought about it some more this morning. And I want to talk about it a little bit, both with respect to how it's going to impact the Let's Plays on this channel, which, I'll go ahead and give you a big hint right up front. It's not going to. And then secondly, how I feel about the changes that they are proposing here, and my thoughts on, just how promising this sounds. So, first of all, let me go ahead and say right up front, anytime they are addressing fundamental, I don't want to say bugs necessarily, although they reference a bug in this, but whenever they focus on bug fixes over just adding more content to the game, I'm in favor of it. That's not to say that I dislike new content being added to the game. I just wish that stuff like this, focusing on the existing game and the problems in the existing game over just pumping out new content, I think that's encouraging. I also think it's very encouraging to read things like what they say right here in this first paragraph, which is basically, I'm going to cut to the chase here, encouraged us to think about even more ways that we can involve you in some of our more complex game changes and work closer with you all to bring more improvements to the game. So they're at least paying lip service to the idea of being responsive to the community. And I think to a certain extent, they have certainly shown some improvements in that respect. I think that Omens of Destruction may be an example of how maybe they're not doing it as much as they should. But in any case, I want to give credit where credit is due. And it is a good thing that they're showing that they want to be responsive to the community. Okay, I'm not going to read all of this out. I know that several other YouTubers have done a good job of reading through it already. I just want to focus on a couple of important points. And the first one that I wanted to focus on is just to make it very clear, because I'm going to be a little bit critical about it a little bit as well, but I want to make very clear up front that I do think it's a good thing that they are addressing existing problems in the game. That's never a bad thing, and it's also not a bad thing that they are talking about wanting to be more responsive to the community. Okay, moving forward, I guess I'm just going to go ahead and say right now, today is this is the morning of February 13th. I'm trying to get this video out really quickly here before I get to work on other things. So today they're launching the new public beta branch for Warhammer 3. I'm not going to be signing on to that. I can't think of the right word for it, but anyway, I'm not going to be volunteering for this right now, and that's because they're saying right here, to understand what changes we're making, you'll read all about the science, blah 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 blah. Actually, let me jump forward. Sorry. We're encouraging folks to start fresh campaigns for this test in order to check best on how our changes are performing. Well, obviously, it's being a beta, they could be introducing new bugs, and considering I have 4 Let's Plays already running, I don't want to risk those, nor do I have time to be starting fresh campaigns. So that's why I'm not going to be signing on to this. I would if I didn't have those Let's Plays going, but I do. So I do want to pause for a second and just say I'd be very interested to hear from any of you who are doing the signing on to the beta here, what you think about it, because I'm obviously very curious to see how it works, if it really is going to show the improvements that they think it will. Okay, so anyway, moving down into the campaign AI improvements. Okay, a couple of things that I wanted to mention here. This is good to hear this kind of an explanation for the way that they're breaking down addressing AI behavior. This makes sense. However, I will say overall, I found this to be pretty vague in terms of the changes that they're making. Don't get me wrong. When we're talking about programming, maybe it's better that they stay vague. I wouldn't expect them to be like showing us exactly in the code the problems, but I do kind of feel like as I'm reading through this, I'm kind of feeling like, okay, I wish they had gone into a little bit more detail about this. But anyway, It's fine. So, campaign AI improvements, they're saying, I want to address an issue you've all been vocal about, idle campaign AI. Okay, I'm going to pause right there for a moment. I do agree that campaign AI is important and it certainly could be improved. And I don't have a problem with them working on this, but at the same time, I kind of wish they had focused on other things. The reason is there are mods that do already improve campaign AI. And based on what I've read here, I'm questioning whether the results of what changes they make right here are going to wind up being better than the mods that are already out there. They may very well be, and I hope that they are. I'll be very curious to find out what Hecleus has to say when he reads through this and determines, what, if any, changes he needs to make to his AI mod or set of mods. But in any case, I feel like, okay, it's good that they're addressing this problem. I kind of feel like there are higher priority problems in the game that I wish they would be focusing on instead. So, take that for what it is. I guess it's a mild criticism, but I don't want to, again, I want to make it very clear, fixing existing problems in the game is a good thing. It's just a matter of priorities. And maybe this is low-hanging fruit. Maybe this is something that they found this bug and they thought, okay, this is really not going to be all that hard for us to address it. So, we're not going to have to focus tons of resources on it. Whatever it is, I hope that they made a smart decision in terms of focusing on campaign AI. Okay, so let's talk a little bit here about the query system. They are talking about the problem we discovered and subsequently fixed for this beta had to do with the query system. Inside the campaign AI exists a separation between assets that move and those that do not. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I think that's a nice, simple way of looking at it. Movable assets include agents, armies, and navies. Okay, I'm with you so far. Several of the queries that the campaign AI uses to decide if it should use its, okay, there's the little grammatical problem right there, punctuation problem with the word its, but I'm going to try not to get hung up on it. Those of you who know I'm a writer know I get hung up on things like that. Anyway, should decide if it should use its available forces for tasks such as actively defending threatened territory or incorrectly reacting to the presence of agents. In practice, the campaign AI was prioritizing tasks of the defend settlements when enemy forces are present, type when any hostile agent was present. To prevent similar issues in the future, we double-checked all query function as expected, made sure all queries check mobile asset types, and improved testing processes to account for similar fundamental assumptions being wrong. Okay, so they've listed one specific problem here, and then they've kind of said, in general, we're also improving sort of our quality assurance methods to make sure that, we're accounting for it in any similar any similar situations. So as far as we know, that's the only problem that they found. They're saying they're improving testing processes to account for it in other places, but they don't actually say whether or not they located any other problems. My hunch is that they probably did not, or else they would have mentioned it here. So, okay, I'm glad they're fixing this. This does sound like potentially an issue. I'm a little skeptical that this single problem right here is responsible for really bad campaign AI. And they're not saying it's responsible for all of the bad campaign AI or even all of the lack of aggressiveness. I'm still a little skeptical that fixing this one problem is going to have that much of an impact. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it really does make a significant impact, and I hope that. Well, anyway, I'll just leave it at that. I hope that the aggressiveness of the AI does significantly improve just from this change. It does say, how will this affect you in game? It means an AI-controlled faction will no longer immediately assume a defensive posture and concentrate forces near or in settlements whenever any hostile agent ventures into their territory. The reason, by the way, I'm a little skeptical is because I've seen what looks to me like passive behavior even when there are not any quote-unquote hostile agents in their territory. I know I typically tend to keep my own agents in my armies, at least in the early game, because you need all the strength you can get in in your armies in the early going. Now, later on in the game, I tend to use agents out in the field a lot more often, but like I said, I see what looks to me like passive behavior amongst the AI, even when there aren't any hostile agents in their territory. But, I'm open to being proven wrong. Okay. So over the course of reading and investigating community feedback, we decided we need to revisit how some of the campaign AI's top level strategic decisions are made. I have more hope for this making a big deal. Again, this is kind of what I'm referring to, though, by it being relatively vague. I appreciate the explanation that they put here insofar as it goes, but our goals here are to promote more conflict between AI factions and improve the AI's decision making when it comes to desired attitudes. That's great. All on board for that. Not real specific then about exactly how they're going about doing it. They give a little bit of detail here. Desired attitude, decision making improvement, we've tweaked. So, again, these are somewhat vague terms. Improvement, tweaked. I don't expect them to explain exactly what they're doing in the code, but all I'm saying is that it's a little bit ambiguous exactly how impactful this is likely to be, or for that matter, what they're doing. Negative modifiers for unknown factions. We've tweaked these to make the desired attitudes for unknown factions trend negatively, incentivizing more warring between AI factions. So I will come right out and say this is definitely a good thing. If we can see more war between different AI factions, even when the player is not actively involved, I think that that's a good thing. Again, right here, how will it affect you in game? That means the AI will be more nuanced when choosing how aggressive to be towards known factions instead of the befriend, ignore, or fight behavior it currently exists. Yeah, that's a good thing. I like additional levels of nuance. It's a little bit vague exactly what they mean by more nuance, but, we'll just have to take their word for it. This should add some shades of gray, again, a little somewhat vague language there, and lead to more varied interactions between you and your AI neighbors. That definitely would be very, very welcome. I'm going to go ahead, before I get into faction potential, I'm going to mention two things that they don't talk about a lot, which I do think I would love to see more explanation for how they're handling it currently and if they foresee any changes to it. Number one is there really isn't any language here referring to anti-player bias, and I'm a little bit curious exactly how they see anti-player bias right now, whether they think it's tuned correctly or whether there need to be some adjustments made to that. And secondly, and probably more importantly, are vassals. Particularly when let's say, for example, you're playing as the Warriors of Chaos and you're vassalizing lots of your neighbors in the early going. What impact, if any, are your vassals going to? How are your vassals going to be impacted by this, and how will other factions be affected in terms of their relationship with you, because of your vassals? And then also, when we're talking about AI, I've made many, many criticisms about how completely brain dead vassals tend to behave in this game. It would be nice to see a little bit more exposition here about how vassals might change their behavior after you vassalize them. But anyway, it's not mentioned. It is what it is. Okay, then finally, faction potential. A cornerstone of the campaign AI's behavior is the faction potential system. I don't really know how to feel about this. I'm fine with it. They made a design decision to say these certain factions are going to be major factions. They're going to have basically the deck stacked in their favor. That's fine. I'm not sure I particularly like it, but I'm not complaining about it either. And I think that there are mods that modify this anyway. So if you want to have a little bit more variability in terms of which factions out there thrive versus which ones are just there to be consumed from the very beginning, then maybe you can use some mods to it. But I get using this system, I guess, to make the major AI factions more aggressive. If it contributes to that, then I suppose this is a good thing. I kind of like the idea of a little bit of variability in the game, and maybe there being minor factions that are particularly aggressive as well. But this is definitely going to be one of those where we're going to have to kind of and play it by ear. Wait and see what you know how much impact whatever changes they make here really do end up having. And I'll give them credit definitely for explaining what they're doing. And, I can't blame them for not using specific numbers here. They're saying a slight increase, lowered the minimum, moderately increased. They probably want to have some wiggle room to mess around with these things and not, turn themselves into liars. So I think it makes sense to use, this type of description. But I'm a little curious to see just how much of an impact it's going to end up having. Okay, anyway, I guess to back up, I feel like maybe I made this sound a little bit more negative than I intended it to be. I'm a little skeptical about this one explaining as much as they're trying to say that it's explaining, but I'm certainly happy to be proven wrong with that. Or not even wrong, but I'm happy to be proven for them to prove that it really is as impactful as they say. I'm not saying it definitively is not. I'm just saying I'm skeptical. These other things, I'm just going to have to take kind of a wait and see approach to it. But again, I do think it's a good thing that they are addressing this. It's always better that CA fix in the base game problems with the game rather than us having to rely on modders to do it. Having said that, I do believe there are higher priority problems, particularly in battles. But higher priority problems that I wish they would have focused their time on ahead of campaign AI. And with respect to my own testing it, I'd be very welcome to hear what any of you think about it in the coming week or two before they implement it, because I'm probably not going to get a chance to test it at all myself because I don't want it to have any impact on the existing campaigns that we're running. Okay, all right, anyway, that's all I had. I do think it's a good thing overall that they're making blog posts like this. They're trying to communicate with us all, letting us know what they're doing, telling us that they are responsive to the demands or at least the interests of the community. Those are all very good things. I hope it does continue. All right, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Thanks everybody for watching and listening, and I will see you in the next video.